than getting the perfect product. Because you could be spending thousands of dollars getting the most perfect product that scales to thousands of users or millions of users when you have zero, right? That's a huge waste. And so I'm all about optimizing for cost and speed in the early days, because what that will allow me to do is to actually learn what works, what doesn't work, how the product needs to evolve. And if I'm spending a lot of time making something perfect, then I'm not learning as fast as I can. And so to me, it's much more important to launch quickly, early and often, and learn and iterate. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't build with strategic knowing, hey, we want to be there in 6 months. You don't have to build all the bells and whistles, but you might have a specific tech stack that you might want to pick that will allow you to grow into your whatever it is that you're building, right? Your next iteration. But you can also say, you know what, we're going to use a lot of these no-code and third-party tools to be able to get to a certain point. I have someone going through my program. She actually, on her own, she's non-technical, put together, using a lot of no-code tools, put together a solution on her own. And now, bit by bit, she's pulling pieces out and she's improving, right? Doing some custom development and building the infrastructure around that, because she's proven out that they want and need what she's building. She was able to 6 months, and that allowed her to move quickly. And so there's many different ways to actually scale. And if you have a really good team who actually understands how to think like this and iterate quickly, then you should be able to make the transitions very, very quickly if you are set up like this. Most people say we need to build this behemoth. They spend, again, a ton of money, 60 to 100, sometimes 200 product, and then they launch. Versus you can spend 10, maybe sometimes you can do this program who's doing a service-based business and doing things manually needs to be done. What is that? I think it really depends on your team and how comfortable are they with this lean and agile process that I'm talking about. Because if they are comfortable, you can be really quickly iterating, changing, and scrapping things if you need to, and start over if you need to. Because when you're starting over, it's never a waste. Some people ask me, what about this no-code tool? Won't I outgrow it in 3, 4, 6 months? And my answer is, if you outgrow it and you've learned a lot, then that's not a waste. That learning is invaluable. And so your version 2 could be so much more efficient, so much more on point, and you'll know exactly what needs to be done now that you're investing a lot of energy and time and effort into building something more robust and stable. And so that's my thought. That's how I work. Most people are not comfortable working this way. And so if you ask another technical person, another CTO, they may not give you this advice. But that's the advice that I believe everyone in the early days especially. And I know a lot of big companies want to function this way as well, because that's a lot of my consulting revolves around working with larger companies trying to implement these processes, because they see the cost saving, they see the efficiency of working that way, and there's so many benefits besides the money, but because you're actually building a product that you know someone wants and needs. So that was a long way to answer your question, Sumant. Hopefully you got some value out of that.
Definitely, Nally. That was definitely helpful for me. My last question is, how would you rate, you know, a non-technical founder should be, worried about sharing the product or maybe the information with a tech person who may or may not be outsourced. So generally, what I'm trying to ask is, most of the time, a non-tech founder, he or she, comes across the thought that as soon as they'll share information with the other tech person, they may take away the idea and start building on their own. So that is regular, I'll say, trouble which is generally coming in the early days of the development. So how would you rate that particular part?
I would say don't worry about it because, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just about building the product. Building a startup is so hard, and execution is all that matters, right? So when you are getting someone to build a product, you're not actually sharing the vision, the entire vision for how you're going to bring this product to market, how you're going to sell it, how you're going to market it. All of these things have to come in perfect harmony together to be able to sell the product and the solution that you're building. And so I think a lot of non-technical founders have this fear, because I get this question all the time. Every single time I do a webinar, that's a question that I answer. Number one, technical people, I mean, when you're talking about outsourcing agencies, they're not in the market of stealing your idea. Because if they are good, right? This is a big underline. If you did your due diligence and they have a reputation and a name, they don't want to be known as the firm that steals entrepreneurs' ideas. And so to me, that's an unfounded fear. And when you're talking about other technical people, let's say your co-founder stealing your idea, there's nothing that prevents you from them doing that, right? But what prevents you, or what should make you feel good, is how you would execute would be very, very different how they would execute. Think about, I love using this example, email marketing, right? There's hundreds, if not thousands, of email marketing solutions on the market. They all solve the same problem. They do it in 100 different ways, and they all have customers, because it's not just about the product. It's about how you're going to solve it, what's your take on it, how you're going to execute on it. And guess what? Even if you're able to launch it in stealth mode with your technical co-founder or with your team, it's a good idea. As soon as you launch, someone, I can promise you, will want to copy it. And so that's why I actually, to my students at TechSpeak, I actually tell them, assume that you have 5 other competitors doing exactly the same thing, not even a variation, exactly the same thing, but you know that you can do it better, faster. So there's something about you, whether it's your knowledge, whether it's your secret sauce of how you're going to do it, whether it's your take on it or your industry experience, that will allow you to execute faster and better than everyone else. Otherwise, you're going to lose anyway, right? And so you have to have that conviction that you can do it no matter what. And I personally think it's an unfounded fear because of all the things that I've outlined. So yeah, focus on solving the problem and working with good people, right? I'm not saying don't do your due diligence and don't work with people, and also sign the right contracts. So you can sign the NDAs, you can sign the non-competes and agreements and independent contractor agreements that say that you own everything and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, at the end of the day, that's not real if somebody decides to steal it. Hopefully that will ease your mind a little bit, Sumant.
Yes, Nelly, definitely. Thanks a lot for all the information and sharing your thoughts over the same. I hand it over to you again. Thank you for having me here on the speaker panel.
You're welcome. And again, for anyone in the room, if you guys need resources, if you guys need training, I have free resources, which are webinars that I teach. I also have an entire training that I call TechSpeak for Entrepreneurs Academy that I've launched in 2012. Over 1,200 entrepreneurs have gone through it so far. It's the same stuff that I teach to big companies, and it's there for you to be able to take and implement in your startups. So you don't actually have an excuse that I didn't have access to this information. I didn't know what to do. I give you the step by step for how to use the processes that I think are important, that I personally use with my dev teams, with my consulting clients, with my students. And it works, right? If you get educated, if you have the tools and the step by step for how to do it, it'll ease a lot of your problems, ease a lot of the pains and the questions that you have, and also give you confidence to be able to now know that what you're doing is effective and affect things that aren't important. Sources, use them, learn, and stop wasting money on mistakes that could be avoided. Deep, welcome to the stage. Deep, I'm not sure if you're there. If you want to speak, you can. Oh, okay, I guess not. Siddharth, welcome to the stage. Oh, never mind. Sorry about that. Julian, I just did a PTR. Julian, welcome to the stage. You're next. Are you there?
Hi. This is a great talk, and I think you've already touched on a couple of aspects about the question that I was going to have. I'm currently part of a startup that develops a no-code tool, and we are obviously preaching our product a lot to startup founders, especially non-tech startup founders that want to have an endeavor, starting a venture, and exploring with an idea. So we know from the way we're building our product that building an MVP with no code or low code tool, we also offer a low code solution, is really useful and very, very handy to bring you at least to a that you can prove that your idea works, have your first customers, and just get started with your startup. So I just wanted to see if you had any other thoughts on or recommendations around building with no code, low code tool. For this is a really interesting perspective. In-house here, working on developing the users that decided to use a no-code, low-code approach because it's indeed just so much cheaper to develop a product and bring it at least to a stage that it can be proven that it can work on the.
Yeah, Julian, thank you for sharing. And I'll check out your tool. I haven't heard of it, but I'll check it out. I'm a big proponent of using anything that's on the market. No code, low code, APIs, third-party tools, open source frameworks, whatever you need to be able to launch quicker, faster, so you can learn faster. And one thing I'll note that everyone should know in the audience, especially if you're not technical, and if you are technical, be open to this kind of stuff, because a lot of technical people that I know are actually suffering from this syndrome that I have to build everything myself. I have to have a lot of control over what I'm doing, and sometimes just using a tool that already exists and cutting your development time by 80% in certain cases is going to allow you to focus your time instead of building that perfect tool or perfect solution, or what you think is the perfect solution. In reality, no one may actually care about it, right? If you can cut your learning time by 80% in certain cases, wouldn't that be worth it? And then you can eventually get to the perfect solution. But in the beginning, in the early days, the key is to iterate faster and optimize for cost and speed. We're not saying your products shouldn't work, but if there are tools that will allow you to get the same solution in half the time and half the cost, I'm a huge proponent of that. So yes, use the tools that are out there. Don't even jump into development though. One that I'll say and build a clickable prototype is not the same. Tools like Adobe XD, Figma, it's a lot easier to be able to test potential solutions that you want to launch. They're clickable. They're interactive, right? So you can actually test as though your applications are real. But the beauty of it is that you can change and make modifications a lot sooner and a lot faster and a lot cheaper than tools like no-code tools. Do your validation and prototyping, then plan your technologies and tools that you're going to be using, some of which could be no-code and low-code solutions, and then you go into development. So, Julian, do you have any follow-ups on that, or should we go to Sal?
Yeah, actually, I do have. I'd like to touch on one argument I keep hearing regularly. Many people that want to start up with no code or low code tools say that at some point you'll have to scale up, and when you have to transition to full code development, for example, if you do have to do that, then the question is, how are you going to do that? Or there's a lot of concerns around transferring the source code, privacy concerns, and scalability or security in general. What's your opinion on this?
So it depends on the tool, obviously. So the tools like Bubble, they give you very little control, and it's designed for kind of not a super non-technical person, but someone who's in between a developer and a non-technical person, because you do need to get the skills to be able to learn how to use the tools, and also I think how to think like a programmer. So that tool gives you very little control. But there's a lot of tools on the market now that that will allow you to use no-code tools and then transition to low-code tools if you need a little bit more control. Some of them even give you the code to be able to export onto your own machine or your own hosting service or whatever else if you wanted to leave. There's lots and lots of different options, and I think security is, of course, one by one cases. You would have to look at the specific tools that you're using and evaluate for that. But I don't think that, the mindset is there are a lot of tools that would allow you to not have to recreate the wheel. And so if you can take the stuff that's already standard off the shelf and innovate on the things that you really need to innovate that's really the best of two worlds. And so some tools or some companies actually would use a lot of these tools indefinitely. We already accept, for example, that we don't need to manage payments or email, because there are companies that do that, and we're gladly outsourcing those functionalities to them. And I think at some point we will get to the same stage with code. There are certain parts of code that we should be able to outsource, that we don't need to reinvent the wheel every single time. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for your answers.
You're welcome. All right, Vatsal, welcome to the stage.
Hi, Nelly. Hi, Gregarious. Thanks for inviting me up. A quick bio. I'm a venture capital and a private equity lawyer based in India. I'm a partner with a law firm called Peer Counsel. I'm also an investment banker. I am a partner with Saltwater Associates, which is an investment banking firm. We help companies raise anything between $500,000 to about $50 million. I also make angel investments. In fact, funny story, I recently closed a deal and I'm investing in a entrepreneur I found on on Clubhouse. So that's kudos to Clubhouse actually. I run a venture on called the Happiness Room, in addition to what I just mentioned, which is a training center for a software called Unreal Engine, which is owned by Epic Games. So we are the training partner for Unreal Engine in India. I'm currently then ideating on a new venture in real estate. So I wear a few hats, like you must have noticed. Along with this, I also work in public policy. So I'm a partner with a public policy firm called Kwan, and we work with the biggest tech companies like Disney, Mastercard, Netflix, Apple, and we help them in their policy imperatives here in India. Thanks for having me, and look forward to contributing value to this group. When I mention about Unreal Engine, it's a no code 3D development and design software, and it has use cases across industries, not just in gaming but also in architecture, engineering, construction, in anything to do with film production, virtual production, um, and also in game development. So I am a non-tech founder, and I run a company which does training of a tech platform. So I'm just here to say that it's possible. All you need is a good co-founder. That's my suggestion to this. But anyway, happy to chat and happy to see if there's any value I can add. Thanks, Nelly. I'm Vatsal and I'm done.
Vatsal, may I speak? I want to ask something.
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead.
Vatsal, how could I connect to you?
Sorry, who is this?
I am Satvik. I had a few questions from you. How can I connect to you?
I mean, you can drop me a message on LinkedIn.
Okay,
I
sure.
don't like people teaching me on Instagram because I feel it's a very private thing.
Okay,
But
sure,
you can
sure.
talk to me on, yeah.
Hello.
Great. So we're going in PTR order. So Pravash is next. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, Nelly. I am a big advocate of hackathons, and I have hosted Silicon Valley Comes to the UK, hosted Digital India Hackathon, helped almost 500 plus startups to build MVPs, take it to the market, get validated from investors, industry experts, and then putting money at a pre-seed or seed level. Then after developing the products, as an ex-Googler, I love this whole idea. Building an MVP as quick as speedily possible, and then take it to the market, get the feedback, and building it. So I have one question though regarding this. Being I mean, I've spent almost like 17 years in the UK. I understand the IP, the business ethics part of it. But when you actually outsource sometimes to India, and I have seen that happening across borders, not only in India, for other countries as well. Sometimes you keep complete idea so that your CTO or the tech team actually start working on it. But within that team, people actually steal that idea and they build something side by side as a side hustle. And before you go to the market, you find out that that idea is being worked somewhere other part of the country. So how do you basically stop it? I understand the complete patent and everything, but it's not actually, you can't restrict when it comes to demographic countries and regions. So how do you go about it? That's one thing. Second thing is, uh, how quickly you can build an MVP and show it to investors to make them understand, okay, now we need funds to build the large scale product, so that without getting into too much technical integrities or nitty-gritties, they can actually give you the seed fund so that you can build the actual product. I'm done. Thank you.
Great question. So the first part of your question, how do you prevent anyone or how do you fight someone who you think stole your idea? And the answer is, I don't think you can, because from what I understand on the IP law, you can't actually patent ideas, or people see once it's public can be copied. Unless you have a patent on a specific process, you can't really fight it. I don't know if that's what you're asking specifically, or is there something different?
Yes, that's what I was asking. I mean, at least there should be some level of global restriction, particularly for tech startups and founders, because I would just take a probably few seconds to say the story. So I already have a technology business incubator, and we've been working with the tech products here in India, which we got a contract from the Smart City mission. And unfortunately, when we actually presented this product to the government, the guys who are part of this mission, they actually take our file, and they also we actually showed them the demo and everything, so we had to give the as well the tech architecture part of it. Days they came back to us and say, oh, we are actually on hold because of COVID-19, we're taking time. But we realized within 2 months time that product has been already launched in Lucknow, which is a part of UP, and we couldn't do anything. So basically we went back to the officers and spoke that we got the deal. You have kind of given us the permission to build it. How can somebody else can actually take it, and now they are already in the market, got the permission. So that's a bit of unfortunate we found. So we don't have any restrictions also has to stop it, but I would definitely would love to hear from you if there is something can be at a global scale done, so that a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming to this kind of countries, they can be stopped.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think there is anything. All across the world, as soon as whatever basically you see, you can copy. And that's why I always, I don't know if you were here when I was answering somebody's question about stealing ideas. I think this was about 10 minutes ago. I always tell people, assume that there's 5 other people doing exactly the same thing as you, but you can do it better. So what if somebody copied your idea or is doing something similar? Maybe they are solving it in a different way. Maybe you have a unique spin on it. Maybe you are going to be able to out execute them on it, right? And maybe your sales strategy or your marketing strategy or whatever it is that you have that's unique about you, whatever your superpower is, you can outperform them. Because if you can't, in the long term, if you can't compete with them, they're gonna win. So you don't have to. You can both exist at the same time in the market, but if you are not able to compete, at least even side by side with them, then you won't win. You won't be able to exist as a business. And the example that I shared earlier with email marketing software, right? Lots and lots of them everywhere, hundreds of different solutions. They all have customers. They all figure out a different way of spin to do the same thing, and they all exist side by side. So I think figure out your strength and figure out how, if you do have conviction that that idea is solid, that it can still work, you should go for it. It doesn't mean, just because someone else is doing a similar idea, doesn't mean that you shouldn't do yours. And Vitsal, I don't know if you wanted to add something. I saw you on mute.
Yeah, I wanted to actually, Nelly. Thanks. I was just waiting for you to finish. I totally agree with what Nelly's saying, Pravash. I think ideas are cheap. It's the execution that matters. And as a corporate lawyer, I can uh, completely agree with what Nelly says. Ideas are not copyrightable. You can't have a copyright on ideas unless you put it out in a form like like a musical instrument, when it's incorporated into a note and that's digitally printed. You can have a copyright on that. But if you had an idea of what syllables to add or what music to add, that itself can't be a copyright. So I mean, I think I would rather agree with what Nelly says, that ideas are very, very cheap. It's the execution that matters. If you can't execute better than the others, you may as well not do it, because that just means you're not going to do it. Thanks.
Great, and Pravash, thank you, Vitsal, for that. What was the second part of your?
My second question was how quickly, or even if at MVP stage, are investor really open to keep the seed funding so that the non-tech founder can go and build it instead of wasting time?
So I think it depends on the investor. It depends on who you're talking to, and I think you should, if you're thinking to go that route, you should build your list of potential investors who invest in your type of sector, your in industry or whatever, the type of product that you're building, maybe the type of entrepreneur you are, all of these things. Find the types of investors in your area that potentially could invest, right? So and then getting clear are you going to go to seed investors, angel investors, private equity companies, right? There's so many different ways to raise money. So understanding what's going to be your path and making a list and start to build your relationships with those potential people right now. Not you never want to be raising money when you actually need the money, and maybe even figure out how to give them updates on your progress. I've recommended previously people create a mailing list of updates that they can regularly send to investors, potential co-founders, potential all kinds of people who are interested in what you're working on, and giving them updates on a regular basis. And what that allows them to do is to see your progress over time, so that by the time you're ready to raise money, they already know you, they already trust you, they've already are familiar with what you're working on, and they're much more likely to take a meeting with you or even listen to what you have to say at that point, right? And so part of your research would be to find out what would be their requirements for investing, how do they work, all of that stuff. So it all depends on different types of investors and what they're looking for. Some investors won't invest unless you actually have revenue. Some people would invest, very few nowadays would invest in just the idea stage. So it's going to be very important for you to find, do the research to find out specifically on the specific investors that would be able to help you.
I totally agree with Nelly. I think that idea for, running a newsletter is very effective. I've seen a lot of companies do that, and I think that's a great idea. So if you're noting that, Pravash, you should. The second thing, Pravash, is I noticed that you're already connected with me on LinkedIn. So just drop me a message, and I'm happy to chat with you.
Yeah, definitely, Vatsal. I will definitely do that. Thank you, Nelly. That really helps. And we actually started working with an angel investor before even building the product. So we are already in touch with him, and he is already a kind of shareholder with us. But it's just because we are in the NFT pre-sale stage right now. So we kind of looking to get into the NFT space to the next level ASAP with an exchange on partner. So that was, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's go to Ayush. Welcome to the stage.
Hello everyone. Hello Kelly. So a little introduction about myself. I'm currently an undergraduate business and finance student, and currently I am working on multi-sided platform, and we have already validated the idea by uh, talking and taking feedback from both the sets of users, so the money side and the subsidy side. And the current challenge that I am facing is how to onboard a technical co-founder, because it takes some time to gel with the person or the co-founder, and so we go through like it's like the speed dating. So it takes time to get familiar with the other person. So how do uh, I onboard a technical co-founder?
Great question. I was actually waiting for that. So I do equate finding co-founders to dating. And just like you wouldn't ask someone you just met to marry you, or at least you shouldn't, uh, you shouldn't ask a co-founder or potential co-founder or technical person that you've just met to become your co-founder. You have to be able to spend the time to get to know them. It's not just about skill set, right? There's two things that I think a lot of non-technical founders get wrong. Assuming that just because you're technical, that you can build the type of product that you need. So Pravash mentioned that they're going into the NFT space. They are very, very different than a traditional web app or a mobile app, right? So the types of technologies, the types of expertise that he should be looking for is going to be very different than someone else, or maybe the tech person that you're talking to. Just because someone is technical or has written code before doesn't mean that they can do the things that are required for you. So number one, you need to assess skill set, that they align on vision, how you want to grow the company, what type of company how big you want to be, right? Do you want to bootstrap versus raise money? So many questions. And then how well do you work together? Do you, so many questions, right? Do you even, are you able to solve really difficult problems together well and efficiently? And so many people, especially non-technical founders, I find say yes to a co-founder relationship way too soon, simply because they function from a position of need, launch or build this software or launch my product, etc. And so in my webinars, I have this whole concept that I call earning a technical co-founder. And it's very difficult in the early days to attracting anyone. I have people who have tried for 8 months to a year, sometimes 2, trying to find someone to join their team. And instead of waiting, you need to figure out how to take action, right? So there are 3 steps to earning a technical co-founder. First one is validate the prototype, or validate the idea and build a prototype. Second one is to start to build a community around your product. The first one is going to showcase that you're not just an idea, that you are actually, have customers, that you have interest in the market, that you've identified the market, that this is something viable, right? Building a community around your product will allow you to showcase your marketing skills, which are necessary to actually sell the product. Again, that you're not just an idea person, but you have thought through customer acquisition, how growth is going to happen, and all of that. And finally, you need to invest some of your own money into building an MVP. And the whole that you have, the less of an idea you are, the more attractive you become to a technical person. Lots of technical people get pitched on a daily basis, good technical people, to come join their startups. And when they, on one hand, they have tons of opportunities. They can earn thousands of dollars working for big tech companies. And now you're asking them to come and take a risk on you and your startup. Get no payment, like you can't pay them, work for free, and also the opportunity cost of spending time with you rather than building up their career or going working somewhere else. So it's a very risky proposition, and the more you can de-risk the opportunity for them, the stronger position you're in, and it changes the conversation from I need you to here's an opportunity. Come join me for the ride. Look what I've been able to do without you. Imagine what we can do together. So that pitch is very, very different than, hey, come and work for me for free, right? Hopefully you can see that, and it changes the conversation. And so you can't, so parallel to what you're doing, so you should be dating, you should be taking your time to vetting your potential technical co-founders, but what you shouldn't be doing is waiting for them to, until they're ready. You should be making progress every single day, because the more progress you make on your own, the more attractive you become when you pitch the idea to them. Remember, pitching it as an opportunity is much, much stronger, gives you a lot more leverage.
So I have a follow-up for to this. So
Go for it.
we already have pre-launch partners sign up for the like the platform, and I am also working on the website using non-code sources. So, but I think a lot of time a question that I have is uh, um, what can happen is it might take time to get a technical co-founder, and partners may leave the pre-launch partners may leave uh, the uh, leave the platform just because like uh, we have taken longer than their expected time that we would take to ship the product.
Having a technical
So
co-founder doesn't guarantee that you're going to launch your products on time. I see this every single day with all the people that I work with. What will allow you to launch your products on time is a good process, is a good ability to manage your team. And whether you have an in-house team or an outsourced team, you need to be able to manage them and give them the specific tasks, know how to estimate, know how to do all of these things, and run a tight ship and a tight process. That's how you launch products on time and on budget. Having a technical co-founder does not guarantee that you will ship products on time. And so I think that's a huge misnomer. And I think you should get clear on what is going to be their role. From my personal experience, a lot of technical people, so this is a conversation we always have in these rooms, is they say, I need a CTO. I need someone to come help manage this thing for me, right? But what you're looking for in the early days is not a CTO, you're looking for a developer. You're looking for someone who can build the product. And that's at the most a senior developer, right? You could have a junior developer, a senior developer, or mid-level developer, but you need someone who can get their hands dirty and actually code the thing. In the true definition of a CTO, that's the person who implements process, that's the visionary, that's the person who manages the teams, that works on developer culture, developer happiness, all that kind of stuff. Most people in the early days in your company are not going to be familiar with process. Most of them, I work with a lot of technical people who have never used lean methodologies or maybe have a flavor of agile that they've used in their past work, but it's not necessarily the most efficient way to do things, right? So just because they're technical doesn't mean that they know process. And so having that expectation that bringing a technical person is going to magically solve all of your issues is definitely not correct. So knowing what specifically that technical person can do, and if you expecting them to manage the process, manage the team, and all of that kind of stuff, you need to make sure that you hire for that role. And hopefully that answers your question. If you have a follow-up, feel free to chime in. But I think the problem here is not necessarily waiting until you get a co-founder, right? Because having a co-founder is great, but making progress is very important. And the way you would make progress is either learn the project/product management skills yourself, which is what I teach to non-technical entrepreneurs, alongside the tech jargon that you need. And then you manage the team, hire a team, whether in-house or outsourced, and then manage them as though they're your developers. Work with them on building that early product until you're able to bring someone instead of you to manage that whole process. So, yeah.
yeah, thank you for answering my questions. Yeah.
Nelly, do you want me to chime in just for a minute? I mean, less than a minute for Ayush.
Sure.
So Ayush, what I understand is you are already building a product. So if you are based out of Mumbai or India, I think you should connect to HackerEarth and put your project there. So you can actually get a lot of developers with 2 to 3 years experience to basically do a small code for you so that you can actually build your MVP and post that if you'd like to take it. You take those people on internship basis them to basically get the engineering credit, and in return you can also build the product in 4 or 5 months time as you go along. And once you raise the money, maybe you can go for hire developers properly. Thank you.
Yeah, I will definitely check it out.
Yeah, and Pravash, I just wanted to comment on what you just said. So hiring students is a good thing and a bad thing at the same time, because what I found is when I just hired students to work on my product, they took way too long to build something. They don't have experience, like real world experience, to be able to build something that you need. Depending, of course, on what you're specifically using, what technology stacks. Personally, I haven't had a lot of success with just hiring students to do the work. What I've had success with is pairing up students with more senior developers. And that's when they were able to grow enough and learn enough from the senior people to be able to actually make meaningful progress and also learn at the same time and grow as a technical person. And I've actually hired those students later on because, once you find some really good people who learn really quickly and efficiently, they become amazing part of the team. But the key is to pair them up with someone who can actually teach them the ropes for how to actually do it.
Yes, totally agree with you, Nelly. So normally I do is I actually create a design sprint of my own, a framework, and then after I bring in people for 36 hours or 48 hours hackathon. So normally they spend like Friday evening, Saturday with us, Sunday morning, build a prototype, and then after we validate with industry experts as well as investors. And if industry experts like and they would like to take it further for an incubation or accelerator program, then we normally hire these developers for the future collaboration. And that's mostly 6 months to 1 year. We work with them on a contract basis because sometimes they leave for their placements and they go overseas for their higher studies. Post one year, we actually make them permanent with the organization. So that is a reward and incentive model for them as well to perform. And once they perform, they get incentives as well.
Great, thank you for sharing. Yes, there's lots and lots of different ways to make something happen, and as an entrepreneur, figure out what are the creative ways that you can go around the limitations that you have. Right, the job is to do something impossible with as few resources as possible. So get creative. Uh, Actually, I just realized that I think we skipped Athik somehow. Are you still there, Athik?
Yes. Okay. I have a,
Sorry,
okay.
sorry about that. I just realized this. I pulled to refresh and I saw that we skipped you somehow. So welcome to the stage.
Yeah, I have a, thanks for the discussions. First, to put it in a context, uh, I have incubated a lot of technology, hardware technologies in the market. Right now, I'm trying to do a lot of software-based technologies. So I have a complete roadmap of technology and not. I mean, I'm not technically in IT relevant. I'm not technically equipped, so I get handicapped with the vision to the when I set the visions, there is always execution challenges comes. So there is a dilemma occurring to me once again. should I start learning all those things, or what is the best right way to handle this kind of crisis?
So that's a question I get a lot, and I think the mindset that you need to have is really understanding longer term. Who do you want to be in your company? What's going to be your role? If your role is going to be CEO, there's absolutely no reason why you need to learn how to code and actually do a lot of the execution yourself. Because getting to market fast and quickly so you don't miss the market opportunity is really important. And when I see a lot of entrepreneurs trying to do everything themselves instead of being in the mindset of, I'm going to build a team to be able to get this off the ground really quickly, is really important, right? So it all depends on who longer term, how do you see yourself? If you want to be more on the tech side, that learning how to code and actually do the execution is really important. I work with a lot of people who want to stay CEOs but realize the importance of management, right? Managing the technical talent, speaking their language, setting a culture and a process based on lean and agile methodologies. And that's usually enough. If you have those three skills, right? Speaking the language, having the product manager skill set, and the project manager skill set. Those are the three things that I think are essential for the CEO in the early days until they can obviously hire someone, a product manager and a project manager to replace them at some point. But those are the three skills that I think the CEO needs to have. And then the technical part should be outsourced, meaning not necessarily outsourced, right? But you could have an internal team, but it's not something that you're doing yourself. Hopefully that gives you a better perspective.
In connection to this question, actually, I have one concern that many times when we are, I happen to incubate a lot of technologies in India, in abroad, and other places. The thing is, like, when I set the roadmap, many times what happen is, in terms of IT, they come, a lot of partners or people whom I work with is in the technology end. They say that these are the technologies not available, or these are the technologies going to be not fit with the budget. So is there any way, means, there are many of intellectual properties also entangled with the incubation. So in that time, how much extent, and what is the way forward, what is the way we can use it so that we can achieve our visions?
I'm not sure I understand the question, Estik. Would you mind simplifying it and say my question is, and then try to rephrase it in a different way, in a simpler way?
My question is, the sector worked, we set any roadmap, they say that it is either technologically very much, it takes its own course. We wanted to deliver happen in 6 months, they say that it will be happening in 2 years. So as we are handicapped with the technology, technique, in terms of technology, how we have to understand that whatever the communication has been put on by them is actually referring to the actuality, and how we can work with them in a
So I think I understand the question. So instead of thinking how we're going to build this giant project, the behemoth that's your idea, how can we launch a minimal viable version of it, right? And the definition of the MVP is the minimal feature sets that you can launch with that will still provide value to your customers. And if you look at your entire product and figure out what is that MVP, what is that core product, what is that core product that is going to solve the core problem that I've identified in my validation, that would allow me to launch the product and still onboard customers because it solves that core problem for them, is the way to go. So not building the entire solution, but in my definition of an MVP, I don't think it should take more than 2 to 3 months to build. If it is, then it's generally not an MVP. Of course, it depends on what you're building, but most things can be launched in one form or another in 2 to 3 months. And so that's the type of thinking that I want you to have, is how can I launch an MVP and do it in an iterative fashion so that you can iterate. Like the whole idea is here you have an entire roadmap that you might have, but once you launch the MVP in the product, you may realize that those 20 features that are waiting in our roadmap are actually not the next thing that we should be building. It's actually this thing that we just discovered that our customers need or the market dictates that we should build. And so that is a much better way of going about it. That's the lean and agile way, rather than what I believe your technical partners are proposing is too slow for a startup, not going to work.
If I can come in, Nelly, I think what you're saying is so logical, and kudos to you for answering these questions. I think I've just been hearing you, and I can't agree more. I mean, even with the last answer you gave about dating a co-founder, I mean, it took me 6 months to get in bed with my co-founder. It takes time, and I'm a non-tech person. I'm a business guy, right? I get the clients, but I need a tech founder to build the product, or to basically, in my case, train the various professionals that are coming to us for learning a software called Unreal Engine. So totally agree with what you're saying, Nelly. And I think what I would also say is that something that I've always told people, because I mentor a lot of startups. I'm a mentor with a lot of accelerators, incubators, global as well as in India. And I tell everyone that, look, you don't have to always look at a CTO as a co-founder. You can separate the two things. A CTO can also be a hired position. And honestly, until you reach a scale of at least some revenues, path to profit, I don't think you need to actually have a CTO. I think you can just have a good product manager, and that can be agile enough. um, and agile teams work just like that. They work with scrum masters. They don't work with anything which is very CTO heavy. So for anyone listening here, I mean, look, I've advised over 200 transactions as a venture capital lawyer, and I've seen all kinds of companies come and go. And I feel like, don't be in a rush to hire a CTO. It could be the worst decision of your life if you mess it up. I would suggest that start with like getting a product manager, and work your way up. That I would just say that, yeah.
Absolutely agree. In most cases, if you're a tech-enabled startup, which most of non-technical founders don't think of a deep technology solution. So most non-technical founders have tech-enabled solutions. Until you're ready for Series A, I don't think you need a true CTO, right? So if you have a really good process, you have VP of engineering maybe, you have a great product manager / project manager, or those two people could be separate roles. That should be enough for you to iterate on the product and get to product market fit. And so in the meantime, you should be building relationships so that by the time you do need someone technical to come in and really take your company to the next level, help you scale on the technology side, etc., you already have some really good candidates and relationships, but you don't need to worry about that. I have a YouTube video that I created on the 6 qualities of a CTO, and most people, when they come to me and they say, Nelly, I need a CTO. What they're really saying is, I need a developer who can work for equity, who can build the first version of my product. And that's very, very different, right? Than, hey, I need a real CTO. So if you guys are wondering of the qualities that a real CTO should have, go watch the YouTube video. Digital Woman is the name of the YouTube channel. So check it out. All right, let's keep moving. We'll close out with the people on stage. I know there's a lot of people who have raised their hand. Unfortunately, I won't be able to address all of the questions today. If you don't get a chance to ask your question, come back on Thursday at 2 p.m. And again, raise your hand. I'll bring you up to the stage. We'll do this room again on Thursday. If you are interested in learning more about a lot of the concepts that we talked about today, I dive a lot deeper into them in my webinars, which are free. Jump and learn. The link is in my bio, or go to techspeakforentrepreneurs.com and click on free classes. So there's one tomorrow on how non-techies can launch successful tech startups, and it's at 8 a.m. Pacific. And on Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific is how to cut your product development costs by up to 50%. Also 8 a.m. Pacific. All right, so let's keep moving. We have
Nelly,
Jafar.
I had a quick question, Nelly.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I think sorry, Nelly, just something I want to check. You mentioned while answering, I think 2 questions ago, you were mentioning some link about some, I don't know what it is, whether it's some material that you have online, some material you have online which is free to access. Can you just let me know what it is? Because a lot of people come to me, I could also share that with them. I believe you were answering someone about how they can reach you via some content that you have. Can you tell me what that is?
Sure. So I do free webinars every week on these topics. And so the website is techspeakforentrepreneurs.com. And I also have an entire training that is completely self-paced. It's 10 modules from beginning to end, how to manage a team like a CTO using lean and agile methodologies. And I've taught it to a lot of non-technical founders so that they basically it teaches them 3 things: the tech lingo and the tech jargon that they need so they can start to build the base for their tech vocabulary. They learn the process for how to build and manage a team using lean and agile methodologies. I teach them how to be a product manager and a project manager and all of the processes that they should be implementing with their teams so that they can minimize mistakes and do this stuff properly. So that's a paid training, but there's a lot of free resources that I offer as well in my webinars.
Hey, thanks, Nelly. So where can one view those self-recorded, self-timed 10 lessons? Like where can one find them?
It's on techspeakforentrepreneurs.com.
All right, cool. Thanks.
You're welcome. All right, so Jafar is next, but he looks like he's on the phone. So
No,
let's go.
sorry. Hello.
Oh, there we go. Hi, Jafar.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, Nelly. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Welcome to the
Thank you.
stage.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Jafar. I'm a third year or junior year of my college. I'm in Kenya at the moment. I'm a third year computer science student. So at the moment I'm actually I really wouldn't define my role as of yet, but like I've been working on a startup for like the past 3 years now, and I'm slowly really getting the gist or the hang of the startup life. It's really not that nice, but I mean it's pays. We've been facing a lot of challenges. So like the product spec keeps on changing. Client per se, so we are in the HR space, and good client and a client rather, and you talk to them and they're like, yeah, I like this, but you could add you could add another feature. So we're like, okay, we'll reconsider that. And then you find that, so my co-founder is more of he's more of the non-technical guy. So he just funds it, and he's really into micromanaging us, and I mean it's really hectic. So you find that today we are using Notion for collaborating and so on and so forth. But I mean, the question I'm leading towards is, what comes first? Like, does a product design, or it's actually a question of engineers versus designers. So like, should you focus more on designers first, like i.e. like the UX prototyping and all that, without actually any technical coding before you like when you go to the market. So like, I mean, Steve Jobs said that, you actually, you actually focus more on the customer first, then you start, working backwards from now the engineering side. So it's actually a question of, should I be focusing more on the design or the technical side? And also, in terms of if I focus more on the design, that makes me lean towards a minimum lovable product, MLP, as compared to an MVP that's actually more like a proof of concept. And ideally, how do you like have this non-tech person and the technical person have a shared value? So, I mean, I don't know. I think I've asked so many questions in the same question, but
Yes,
yeah.
you did.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry about that. Okay, so the first question will be, is it, who comes first, design or engineering? Then second will be, how do you have the technical team and, the non-tech co-founder, or, the startup owner, quote unquote, to like, have a shared vision? And then the third question will be, yeah, now that you've worked on an MVP, you worked on something, and now you're hitting the market, then you realize, oh, the market needs this, or like, so I mean, the product spec keeps on changing, so how do you deal with all that?
So, okay, let's start at the beginning. What comes first, design or development? Development comes last. So in my 10-step process, writing code is step number 8. But in the way that I manage teams and projects, by the time something gets to development, there's no questions about what needs to be done, what needs to be implemented. The estimation will depend on everything, right? Specifically how it's going to be built, what's going to be used to build it, how complicated is the design, the front end, the back end, all of that needs to be incorporated into the estimation of both time and money. And so if you put development first, you're going to, of course, reach a lot of scope creep constantly and are always going to be on the offensive and feel like you're out of control. So to answer your question in a short way, it's design first, then development. The second question, what was the second question? Sorry.
How do you have the technical team, or like your team and the tech and a non-tech founder, or like the founder, to like have a shared vision? In that you find
Yeah,
that at
and
times there's a really big gap in hiring. So like you could hire someone who's just in it, for the money, or like just for the sake of the gig, and then there's like other people who like come in and they see the the larger picture and they really want to help you, but like they're also constantly burnt out and stressed out because of the constant changing, and how
right.
startups are. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the vision and communicating the vision is really important to everybody. So I think there is 2 points, two sides to this. There's the culture side, so you need to make sure that you're hiring people for cultural values. So I'm a big, lean and agile person, and so the whole idea behind the lean way of building products is this methodology, this philosophy of learn early, learn often, learn cheap at every level, not just at the beginning product validation level, right? And this is what we use when we pick technologies. This is what we use when we decide how to build a product, what to use specifically, right? So that's our North Star for how we make decisions in the company. And if I hire someone who doesn't either buy into it or doesn't understand it, so I need to make sure I train them on that type of thinking. So like everything comes from culture, and there's other things that you should have that are part of your culture that are important to you. Learning quickly, transparency, whatever it is for you, right? So hiring for culture is really important. And then also managing the team. So we talked about part of managing the team and implementing the culture is someone who is constantly there, making sure that everybody is on the same page, everybody understands, and everybody functions with the same set of principles. and if somebody's steering off of that, that you're on top of it. So it's a constant, it's a full-time job for in a big organization, right? Somebody's responsible for that. And having a product person who's close to customers is also really important, so that they can convey the vision, so that the customer is part of the entire decision-making process as well. Like, so there's all these things that are all connected that are going to make a huge difference for everyone to be aligned around the same goals, same mindset, same vision. It all needs to be fostered. It doesn't happen on its own.
Okay. And then, yeah, the last question was, more of, okay, ideally, what do you think of, a marketing strategy such that you have free pilot programs for, your clients, and even to an extent, actually offering to pay prospects to actually use the platform. I know it seems a bit far-fetched, but yeah. What do you think of, such a marketing strategy?
So to me, marketing strategies are actually defined. If you do your validation, which is step number one in my process, if you do that really well, you should know exactly what your go-to market strategy should be. Your messaging is all determined based on that, because number one, you're finding the market, you know exactly how to acquire them, where they hang out, and you know what's important to them, how to communicate that value of what you're building. And so if you do validation really well, you would know the marketing strategy and all of that stuff and the messaging way before you even build the product, right? And so paying your customers to use your product is an interesting strategy. I don't think it's maybe viably doesn't make sense for the business, but you need to make sure that your customer acquisition costs, how you acquire customers, how you take them through the customer journey is really important. And one thing that I also is really important, which is step 10 in my process, is analytics. So it's really important. Like, a lot of people launch their MVPs, they don't implement any kind of analytics, and I advocate a lot for behavior analytics, so that you can understand what specific actions people take in your app, so that you can then, from that point on, you can use data to improve your product. Instead of guessing what new things you need to build, what new things need to be improved, you need to optimize your product for retention, because if you spend thousands of dollars on marketing and your retention is broken, which means that people are signing up, but they're not actually coming back to use your product on a regular basis for whatever reason, right? If you haven't fixed it, that's called a leaky bucket. So you're spending lots of money bringing people up, you're not able to retain them, so it's a waste. Metrics that you need to focus on so that it's a process, right? Step by step. There's no rocket science, but if you do it right, it's so much easier for you to know exactly what's working, what's not working, what channels are better, what specific things are going to work, right? It's all part of testing and iterating, even on the marketing side.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nelly. I think I've learned a lot, and same with Vatsal also, and Prabhash. Yeah, thank you, guys.
You're welcome. All right, Edward, welcome to the stage.
Hi, thank you very much, Gregarious and Nelly. Thank you. God, you've been so generous with your advice so far. I'll be as succinct as possible. First of all, a really brief biog to add context to why I'm working on what I'm working on. So I am a valuer, chartered surveyor valuer in the UK, but I'm qualified to value various assets globally. I've worked for various big corps.
Because if you spend thousands of dollars on marketing and your retention is broken, which means that people are signing up, but they're not actually coming back to use your product on a regular basis for whatever reason, right? If you haven't fixed it, that's called a leaky bucket. So you're spending lots of money bringing people up, you're not able to retain them, so it's a waste. Metrics that you need to focus on so that it's a process, right? Step by step. There's no rocket science, but if you do it right, it's so much easier for you to know exactly what's working, what's not working, what channels are better, what specific things are going to work, right? It's all part of testing and
Yeah,
iterating, even on the marketing
100%.
side.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Nelly. I think I've learned a lot, and same with Vatsal also and Prabhash. Yeah, thank you guys.
You're welcome. All right, Edward, welcome to the stage.
Hi, thank you very much, Gregarious and Nelly. Thank you, God, you've been so generous with your advice so far. I'll be as succinct as possible. First of all, a really brief biog to add context to why I'm working on what I'm working on. So I am a valuer, a chartered surveyor valuer in the UK, but I'm qualified to value various assets globally. I've worked for various big corps like AIG on their €32 billion development fund, and I was head of valuation of the largest portfolio in Europe, 6,330 odd commercial properties. So what am I doing? What am I up to? I have unwittingly sprung a trap early with a firm that have their hands on a lot of data. Specifically, this firm project monitor on a daily basis between £3 to £4 billion of property development projects across the UK, and they are extremely keen to work with me on some form of platform that will allow us to monetize that data they have. Currently, in the UK and also overseas, there is heavy reliance on two sets of data, one of which is still unbelievably published in paper form only for building development costs, and the other one is from a small sample pool and lags the market by at least 6 to 9 months. So potentially the product is build cost data, which would be verified by an extremely robust firm. This firm are looking at me to lead the charge. So I'm extremely interested to find your 10-step process. I would say I'm technical in a domestic sense, but definitely it would be folly for me to try and develop this. So I don't know whether to go with an in-house developer or an out-house developer, or sort of outsource it rather. That's my first question. My second question is a little bit more nuanced, and it is, where do I potentially go for seed corn investment? And I'm not thinking about screwing the data provider. What I am thinking about doing is slightly adjusting the terms of my relationship with them so that they have an equally powerful financial gain from participating in this, but actually we can broaden the data set by using my contacts in the network to go and get data from other equally large providers so we can cover more development types. I hope that's clear, I really do.
Okay, so Edward, your first question, whether you should hire an in-house team or an outsourced team is largely going to be dependent on whether or not you can, what you can afford. So hiring an in-house team is actually very costly because you have to worry about providing the entire infrastructure of a company, right? And so traditionally a lot of people outsource because there is a lot of cost savings to that. But there's also a lot of horror stories that come along with that. And the reason why, and I've done this, I've been in this space for so many years. I've seen and I've heard my share of horror stories, and every single time it was because there was a lack of process and there was a lack of management on the side of the entrepreneur when they worked with outsourcing teams. So the way that I recommend people outsource is, you work with the specific developers that get assigned to you and they become your developers. It's not, this is the outsourcing team and this is my team. You just use the infrastructure. So I call this developer as a service, right? You use the developers and make them your own, and you manage them on your own end. And that is the only way that will work. And so the process that I teach is one that I've personally used to outsource effectively. Lots and lots of people, once they standardize how to do things and at what point, it becomes a no-brainer, right? There is also a very clear way to catch mistakes sooner rather than later, because oftentimes what happens is you kind of rely on the outsourced team to kind of tell you when things need to be delivered, how, and whatever, and you kind of rely on their expertise. And by the time you check, it sometimes is too late because you've gone so far down, or you realize that everything was done incorrectly or not to spec or whatever. And that's like, if it's a month later versus a week later, right? If you're constantly working together with them, you can catch those mistakes a lot sooner. You can correct miscommunications early and often, and that's how you ensure that you can get things done in an effective and efficient manner. So that's number one. To me, it doesn't matter if you are able to, afford an in-house team. Definitely do that, but that's not necessary, right? If it's not a feasible option for you. The second question, if I understood it correctly, is so you found some specific company who wants to work with you, but now you also want to sell them the idea that you want other companies like them to give you data as well. Is that correct?
That's essentially it, and it's really what sort of strategy to implement there. Maybe that is way too detailed and deep a question for this platform here, but essentially that's it. Because if we can get a broader data set, then actually we're going to be far more appealing to the insurance companies, banks, and developers and investors who are all calling for this product. That's it. I need to develop. Yeah, sorry, I'll shut up.
No, I think it makes a lot of sense. The one thing that I would kind of advise you here, without knowing a lot of the details, to think about is you need to think about your first person the first company you're working with as the first client. And that's how you need to sell it to them, because if from their perspective, you're building this for them and for them only, and you sign the paperwork to that regard, that's going to be a big problem, right? You're not going to be able to sell them on the idea to open this up to other people. But if you position it properly from the beginning, like this is the SaaS platform that will allow you to do X, and you are our first client, then of course they're not going to be offended by you bringing on new clients. But of course, I don't know the details, and I may be completely off.
No,
but
you're
that's
not.
one thing.
You're absolutely on the right page. So then my question was, in order for me to do that, and I love the way you've couched that. It's really delicate but really robust as well. I really love that language, and that will definitely work. So then it comes back to the question, which is, for me to have them as a client, I can't then do the easier option, which is say, you guys want to do this, you can fund a lot of the development costs, because if they're a client, I think they'll be unlikely to want to do that. So then it begs the question, how do I seed this? Given that another piece of context here is I'm scaling my own startup consultancy, which is going extremely well. But I mentioned earlier, I'd sprung in the trap. I mentioned it to this firm way, way too early on. Now they're really keen. They're calling me saying, when can we do this? When can we do this? When can we do this? And I think I probably need to seed it with an investor. Do seed investors exist? And are they completely greedy? What can I reasonably expect?
Yeah, so I think, yes, you can get seed investors, obviously. I think it's going to be very, very hard to do it on just an idea stage. And depending on your relationships with them, right? It's a lot easier to get any kind of investment if you have a relationship with someone who knows you, who trusts you, who understands what you're doing, and will fund you because they believe in you and your abilities. Right? Versus, now you realize that you need to raise money and you have no relationships and no one actually will give you money on just an idea if you have no proven track record, all that kind of stuff. So it all depends. I would Uh, Also, so you understand, I always advise entrepreneurs to go as much as you can by bootstrapping, because the more traction you can show an investor, the stronger position you're going to be in. Now, the other thing that is not uncommon, if you find a problem big enough, and I've had people in my programs do this as well, they've pre-sold their solution and they found their first customers to pay them to build a solution, right? And so it's not something you can think, like you can actually think of this as they're going to pay to build this product, or they are the early customer who are getting a discount for using it. So there's lots of different ways to slice and dice this. Of course, without knowing a lot of the details, I can't give you specific advice, but
No,
yeah.
it's great. And that pre-sale idea I love. And certainly Barclays Bank have already said that they would sort of consider that. So to you and their insurance companies as their reinstatement cost valuations. So I've loved it. Thank you very much. What is the best way to keep in contact, please, and just sort of learn about your programs? I suppose, yeah, please can you just sort of sell yourself and sell your products? Because yeah, it would be great to learn a bit more and just keep following. That's all right.
Sure, of course. Thank you for asking that question. So I offer free webinars, as I mentioned, and the webinars go into a little bit more detail about the process, why it's set up that way, how it works, etc. And then I also have a paid course, which is based on the 10 steps, and a lot of the philosophies that we talked about all for the last 2 hours are all based on that. I give you the step-by-step, the 10 steps that you need to validate the idea, to building the prototype, to actually planning your development. And again, I teach you a lot of the skill set, not so that you can do it yourself, but so that you know what should be done, what should be expected from your development teams, and then manage the team and the process effectively as a non-technical person. This is the same process that I teach to companies that I consult with, that I work with as a fractional CTO. Alongside with the trainings also comes the support. We do weekly group coaching. I also offer discounted fractional CTO services for people who need it. And my goal is to make sure that people who want to do this don't spend and waste a lot of time and effort on things that don't matter, things that will waste them time and money. They can just take my process and run with it. That's kind of the short version, abbreviated version of it. And you can learn more about it at techspeakforentrepreneurs.com, and also register for the webinars there as well. Just click on free classes. I have 2 coming up this week. One is tomorrow on how non-techies can launch successful tech startups at 8 a.m. Pacific, and one on Thursday, also 8 a.m. Pacific, on how to cut your product development costs by up to 50%.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we have 2 more people and then we'll close out the room for the day. And again, I know there's a lot of people who raised their hand and can't come up today. I'll do this room again on Thursday. So come back and we'll bring you up to the stage. All right, so Abhinav, welcome to the stage.
Hi, Nelly. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and to Mr. Gregarious as well for the room. I won't take up too much of your time. I'll try to be as brief as possible. I'm based out of New Delhi, India. We are a city of around, I think I read the numbers correctly. It is 311 million people right now, and we currently produce 8,000 tons of waste every day. And Delhi is home to 3 giant landfills, and like one of them is as tall as the Taj Mahal. So I am trying to do something towards that. I have efficiently redesigned the circular dustbin because I see circular dustbins everywhere, and people are always in a hurry in Delhi because it's just overpopulated and it's hot and everyone's angry all the time. So people probably don't have time to recycle or segregate. So I I have redesigned the dustbin in a way that I think people might use it, because I'm creating a game with fun theory and implementing it at a metro station near me. Uh,
Abhinav,
Abhinav.
I'm getting a little bit lost. I'm having a hard time hearing you. And so maybe you can ask your question in a shorter, more concise way, with starting with my question is, and then I'll ask you for additional information if I need it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll try and do that. My question is, I have a offline dustbin that leads to that uses technology, that uses AI and DeepMind to scan trash and tell people which dustbin to use. And eventually, I'd be adding more components to it and elements to it. I My question is, what is the way I get uh, developers on board? Is it making a PPT? Uh, is it making a 3D representation on Unity, as Mr. Vasal said, or is it getting someone to film it? Right. Thank you.
S- Abhinav, maybe you can mute yourself because we're somehow getting feedback from each other while I'm talking. I'm I'm not sure exactly what the question is. So if you need to, are you talking about building a prototype that you can show to potential technical people? Uh, is am I understanding this correctly?
Yes, absolutely. It's a new kind of a dustbin. It's just corner mounted. It's another way to use it.
Yeah. So I mean, whether you can build a game or film it, I mean, whatever's cheaper is what you should be doing, right? So start, if film is faster, I would use film. If building Unity, if there's a specific reason why you need to build it in Unity to showcase how it works, to communicate the idea more concretely, maybe you need to do that. But I think it's better to create prototypes that are fast and cheap, to be able to um, move a lot quicker. If it's going to take you 2 months to create a prototype on Unity just so that you can communicate a simple idea, I mean, that's to me is a waste of time. So learn early, learn often, learn cheap. Do what you can to get your ideas across in the most clear way that you can, in the fastest way possible. So whatever that is, whether it's building in Unity or videotape, if video, doing a video to me seems fast. The concept, you need to move fast. Do what will be faster.
Agree, Nelly, if I can. I mean, Abhinav, I think she's making a very valid point. If you need Unity or you need programming to show a 3D render or a 3D model, then do that. But do it in a way that doesn't spoil your timelines, right? Um, Look, I run a large team of Unity and Unreal developers. So if you have a budget, right, because I don't do free work, but if you have a budget, I can put you through to my team, right? That's all I want to say.
Right,
Thanks.
right, absolutely. Thank you for your response. I just wanted the I asked about Unity because I wanted to animate the user experience
Yeah, I
much more
understand.
than
Yeah,
a
we
film.
understand that. I think both Nelly and I understand that. I'm just saying that if you need a team to do it and you have a budget, you can reach out to me.
Right, I'll do that definitely. Also, as just a last question, is what is the best way to reach out to giant companies? Like if I feel that this game would be a good fit for WeWork and Spotify, how do I reach out to them? Like, is it through a legal team? Is it because emails, no amount of emails work. It's always bots that you end up talking to.
Yeah, and that's Abhinav. Unfortunately, that's what you need to figure out as an entrepreneur, right? Like, yeah, I can't tell you how to reach out to people or how to acquire customers. You need to figure it out. Ultimately, having a relationship to someone is ultimately the best way to do it. And so reaching out cold is very rarely works, especially now with people getting hundreds of emails. Maybe think of going through introductions, figure out who you may be having in common. Like that's the hustle of entrepreneurship, is to figure out how to get those partnerships. Absolutely. So unfortunately, I don't know if there's any shortcuts. The only thing I could say is figure out who you maybe could make an introduction, and how to connect with those people who potentially would make a decision. Because just going to an info box is always going to be an autoresponder.
Right. I forgot to mention one thing. I'm so sorry. I want to incentivize segregation with, like, right now I'm passing out water bottles and packets of biscuits. But eventually, if I have a digital display here, I can give out free cryptocurrency. So there are so many more elements and possibilities of this. I'm just like, I don't know where to start here, but I have it all written down. All of the elements I have, like, written them down.
Yeah, Abhinav, I'm not sure I can tell you exactly where to start. The only thing I can offer as a free resource is the webinars. I don't know if that's going to be relevant to you with what you're working on. Feel free to jump on those. And you know, besides actually knowing specifically what you're doing in your company, I can't give you specific advice. So I'm happy to work with you maybe as a fractional CTO and see if I can help you move you along. Or maybe you can reach out to Vitsal.
I will.
It's that at some point, if you don't know how to take the next step, maybe you need to reach out to some experts to help guide you.
Yes, that's why I'm on here. Thank you so much. You guys
You're
are
welcome.
there.
You're welcome. All right, let's finish this room out. I really have to get going. LaRidge, welcome to the stage.
Hey, Nelly, thanks for the spot. I'm driving upstate. I'm thoroughly enjoying all the conversations and all the constructive feedback and responses that I've been hearing for all the genuine questions from a lot of these talents here. I'm not sure if I'm audible enough while I'm driving here in the woods. I
Yep,
hope
we
I
can hear
am.
you. Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. So just, I'll keep it short. I have an MVP that I'm trying to get out in the market for. I heard a few questions around valuations and seed. My question is along the same context. Let's say I'm ready to go out there in the market, and I've been trying it out with certain communities here. But in terms of going to the investors, I want to make sure I have a prepared set of figures in my mind as to how the seed money would work. So is there any guidance as to how to do the best evaluation for your own product at this point before you even go to the investors, so that you're prepared to figure out the best case and the worst case scenario? I'm not sure if that helped pose a good question there.
Yeah, valuation is so relative depending on who the investor is and what. Ultimately, the only time you can guide valuation is the valuation conversation is when you have multiple investors interested in you, right? But ultimately, yeah, the investors set what the valuation of the company is based on how much they're willing to pay. So unfortunately, there is no hard rules. It all depends on what type of product you're building, the expertise of your team, how far along you are, the traction, etc. So yeah, I don't know if I can give you any specifics on this forum.
Gotcha. No, the only struggle I'm having is I think I'm ready to go out there and just start demoing my product. We don't have much traction yet, but I've been hearing from some of the small set of audiences we've been trying to demo the product with that the product is helpful for them. But since we're like mostly data-based company, it's kind of hard for me as a new entrepreneur coming in. I so call myself more of a entrepreneur than anything. So I'm trying to learn as to how the other players do it. If your company is focused on data, I think that's the most valuable asset we're trying to bring into the table. So anything that helps in that nature to give me more guidance in there, or is it the
No,
same answer as this?
yeah, unfortunately, it really depends on the specifics of what you're working on and the team and how far along you are. In general, the farther along you are, the more paying customers you have, the better valuation that you can actually have, right? Which is why they say having traction gives you leverage. Having paying customers gives you more leverage. And so the farther along that you can bootstrap, the better position that you can have with investors, the more of an opportunity it is rather than a need, and the better valuation you can get. And so there's no hard and set rule. It's all like literally you can just have somebody, I don't know if you read the Steve Jobs biography. they, somebody was willing to give whatever they could to keep the company afloat. And that's what he decided, like that's how he was able to buy, I think it was Pixar. The shares in Pixar became the majority owner simply because they had no other funds. They only had one investor, and if they didn't take that money at whatever valuation he set, the company wouldn't exist. And so that's the reality of valuations. And unfortunately, until you actually have an investor willing to invest a certain amount at a certain price, that's what sets the valuation.
Gotcha. Thanks for answering that. I have one more follow-up question, which probably is something based off of different experiences from different companies. I'd say, let's say I'm looking for the seed money. Do you have any recommendations or anything that you've seen in the current market where it's a better platform for these new up-and-coming entrepreneurs to go for seed? I've seen most of these disrupt events and places where they can go and pitch. But what are some of maybe top 3 places that in your books that are best places to be out there if you have an early product to get an early stage seed?
I think the best way is to actually do your own research, because there's so many different types of seed investors, and maybe 80% of them are not going to be right for you based on what you're working on, or they don't invest in your type of startup or the stage you're in, right? And so much of raising money is based on relationships. The reason why a lot of people go to accelerators is because, not because they can't build their own product that's necessarily. I know the other day I heard a 3-time founder went into an accelerator route simply because that would give them the connections and the warm introductions to the investors, that simply because they're a part of a certain accelerator, they get the blessing for, right? And so that's the extra vetting that the investors are looking for. So yeah, the best way to go is to just build up your own list and start to build up relationships with the potential people that could potentially invest in you, and also learn from them. What are their requirements? How do they invest? Get to know them, and vice versa.
Gotcha. Thanks for that, Nelly. I appreciate it. That was helpful. I'll take it further. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so we somehow skipped Satvik. Satvik, welcome to the stage.
Yeah, I have been listening to your show for a long time, and it's really helpful. So I'm Satvik. I'm founder of Rangshala, a one-stop solution for all artists, whether it's buying or selling your paintings, providing art lessons, uh, and we are also building a community on it, so artists can help out each other. So the thing is that I am currently working on each of the verticals individually, and I am now working on a beta website. So I wanted recommendation, which hosting service should I use, WordPress, or Wix, because I'm not a technical expert. I am into marketing, sales, and finance. So I don't know much about programming.
So there's a lot of tools that are out there, and it all depends on what you need for your program, for your website to do.
Basically, at a later stage, I want to get a fully functional platform and add an NFT platform to it, so that artists can get their art get converted into an NFT. So it is just a basic website which I am creating right now. So I want that it can be easily converted into later into a fully functional website.
Yeah, so for a basic website, you can use any of these platforms. The advantage of using Wix or a tool like that is there's drag and drop. Literally, you don't need to know any coding with WordPress. You can install a theme, but it's a little bit more involved. So it's not hard, but it's a little bit more involved than just doing Wix, right? So it all depends on your technical inclination and what you can do, and also how, like, what kind of bells and whistles you want on your website, right? If Wix has the templates that you like, the fastest way by far is to just set up a Wix page. Or there's Webflow, which is much more complex and allows you to do a lot more things. And there's lots and lots of tools, but it really depends on, you should pick the theme or the design that you like, and maybe that's how you should pick the platform.
I
But
had a
Wix is a
follow-up
lot
question.
simpler. Yeah.
I had a follow-up question. Basically, one of the moderators in the other room advised me not to go for Wix, because it is not easy to later on convert it into a fully functioning website. Like if I just put up a Wix site right now, and then I want to convert it into a fully functioning platform, Wix doesn't. Wix is not good for that. So should I try something?
Of course, you may not be able to do it later, but later you can start your own more complex website, because hopefully you'll have more funding, you'll have more resources, maybe you'll have a tech person by then. The question right now is what's going to allow you, as a non-technical person with no skills, to get started faster, right? Because a lot of the times people get stuck on these things. Oh, I don't have a website, I don't have this, I don't have that, and that's why
Yeah,
they don't
sure.
start their thing, right? So
Yeah,
just
thank you
get
for your time.
something out there. It doesn't matter what you use, just get it going. Just start.
Thank you for your advice.
You're welcome. All right, so last question. Shalinka, welcome to this.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Hi, Nelly. I've been listening almost over an hour, and I'm really enjoying all the discussion that's been happening in this room. Just to give this some context, I'm Dr. Shilika, and I run a startup in this space of dental diagnostics. It's called VScan Diagnostics, and we are currently the largest chain of dental diagnostic centers in India with 70 country. Currently, we target to scale to over 500. So I have two questions, if it's all right. The first one is that so my parent company is Chesa Dental Care, and that's a company where we manufacture and trade dental equipment. And typically, our industry works, businesses it's over a phone call or etc. And I would say that they are technology, they don't trust shopping online, etc. But we have seen the potential in kind of transitioning from being a completely offline business to being a blended online and offline. So as you've said, if first for me, I'm a dentist, and then I've done a business program, so I don't have any kind of hardcore exposure to technology at all. So I initially it was just with what this one employee who kind of was interested in creating websites, and we used WordPress, and we made a site, and we started experimenting. And then after that, I hired a developer who knows PHP, and a full stack kind of a guy, and he not like a very senior guy, a pretty junior guy, but he's actually been working and kind of got our e-commerce website up, and he's doing a decent job. So my question here is that he, like, from a strategic point, in terms of a product, I can guide him, but when it comes to technical issues, sometimes I think something that can be solved in maybe like 15 minutes takes him 3 days, because he doesn't really have someone who can guide him technically from a technical standpoint. I haven't really been able to get in a good manager or team lead, or someone who can really guide the team. I am hiring more people at a lower level right now, but to attract talent at a higher level, when you don't come from a as such, like Chessa is a 28-year-old company. So it's for me, the challenge here is that I'm taking it step by step. I'm building the product, even though I'm not able to bring in like huge talent or people at the top, but I'm not able to really give them the support. Personally, from my end, I feel in terms of the kind of technical support that they need. Is there any way that I can deal with this challenge? Any feedback would be appreciated. Thank you.
So are they in house? This person is in house, and
Yeah, I mean, we've tried working with the third party vendor. Hasn't gone too well. There's always been a gap between what we want and what we are able to communicate and what they get. So then I just went ahead and started hiring people, a couple of people in house, because I mean that's what got us to like having, I can say now, a decently, like, a good acceptable website, and in terms of e-commerce as well. Obviously we're like a 100th of probably a great e-commerce website, but it works. Like, someone can come to our site and place an order and track their order.
so Shalinka, I'm gonna challenge you a little bit because I like there are websites like Shopify and whatever other big competitors to Shopify that exist now that allow you to set up a store in minutes. And so I'm wondering why you guys are custom building that rather than just using that tool to be able to sell your product. And I bet you there's a lot of things that you're doing because you're not actually building a product, meaning like a web app or a mobile app,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like none of that, from what it sounds like, there's a lot of no-code tools that you can use that
Mm-hmm.
would completely eliminate your need to be able to have an in-house team, to have a lot of these things automated and work together.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe you have one person instead of two people, and they're not custom building everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much out there from a technology standpoint that would allow you to run your entire business, I bet you, from what everything that you need and connect all the tools that you don't actually need to custom build anything. Uh,
Okay.
so, so I would maybe even using the people that you have, and I know that they may be reluctant to do it because basically they're eliminating their job. See what other products are on the market that would allow you to do what you need to do, and maybe you work with someone on a high level who can
Mm-hmm.
help guide you on what you know this is what I want to do, these are the tools that would allow you to do it, and just use those tools. Because for a business like yours where you're not actually building anything custom,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of tools that are out there. I can guarantee you that you can just use off the shelf and do what you need to do.
All right, thank you so much. Definitely going to check that out. And a follow up to that is that in our space, so we, as I said, primarily the parent company, my parent company, we manufacture and trade dental equipments, and we are very strong players in the hardware and consumable segment of the industry. And my personal interest lies in the software part of things as well, and that's what I'm trying to learn and trying to kind of bring about as a change at the parent firm. So we've seen that our reach to be able to sell and kind of penetrate into the market with a SaaS product with regards to practice management, at least within India, is quite the potential is huge. And I mean, there are competitors in the market, but there is no established player like us in the space of dental practice management, with the kind of experience that we have with regards to the industry. So that's another place that I wanted to actually venture into. And whenever we have spoken to any investors, potential investors, or people who would be interested to kind of they like the whole picture and all of that, they like the story, let me put it that way. The question always becomes, who is going to be able to manage an ERP system or the tech part of things. And that's somewhat like a barrier that where I've maybe it may be just a mind block. That's what I would want to clear, that I'm worried that till I don't get someone really strong in terms of tech, it's going to be really hard for me to build credibility, to get a practice management software out there. And I've as so as I said, I am I've even picked up someone who can help me with the complete documentation of the product, that what's on my mind, and basically create all the wireframes and all of that. So that's I mean, if any advice on how I should approach it, maybe stepwise, would be great with regards to the new vertical that we are adding to our business, which is software solutions for dentists.
All right, so that's very different, Shalinka, and probably the developers that you have right now are not going to get you there, right? Because their skill set is not aligned to what you actually need to do when building a SaaS product. It's a very different skill set than building a website and a WordPress site, etc. So just as an aside. And I think that leads me to the next point. I think you should jump on tomorrow's webinar on how non-techies should launch successful tech startups, and I'll share the step-by-step process that you should be following and what you need to have as a non-technical and do as a non-technical founder to be able to run and launch your startup successfully. Ultimately, you need to get educated yourself. If you're going to be running your company, you cannot rely on other technical people to do everything for you, because here's the thing, and the reason why those horror stories that I've heard for the last 15 years, a lot of the relationships fall apart when the founder, the non-technical founder, completely trusts the tech team to make all the decisions, to make all of the everything right within when it comes to their tech side of the business, and then they leave, or the relationship doesn't work out and things go south. And guess who is the person who is at a loss at that point, right? You know nothing about the decisions that were made. That's when you actually realize that the decisions that were made were not the right for the business. And it's a very late in the game way to find out that something wasn't done properly, or the right decision wasn't made, and you weren't a part of that decision. And so even though you're not going to be doing the work, even though you might have someone else manage your team, you as a non-technical person need to understand what the people are doing, how they're going to be doing it. You need to implement this as a culture of your company and hire everyone against that culture and build a team, because you are ultimately going to be the CEO running the company, right? And even though you are not the technical person, you should still know exactly all the decisions that are being made, how they're being made, and you should be a part of that decision-making process.
Hi, Nelly. Can I just chime in for a minute, if it's okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, Selika, I was just listening to your product. I love the business model and the part of it. I've been through it with another medtech company, and I really like the idea. The only thing what you need is basically sit down with your CTO or maybe the web advisor and create a white paper with him or her. And once you do that, then you can always go back to your storyboard and create a complete wireframes. From there, obviously you build your wireframes and then take it to the developer to basically code it. But as Nelly said, the initial stage, you don't really need to build software as a service product. You can use just simply APIs and build it, sell it first, and post that. Once you have the funds and everything is ready, then you can hire someone with 7 to 10 years experience guy and sit down with him to basically build the prototype part of it. That's your white paper and white label, just to take it further.
Yeah, and Pravash, just to correct something that you just said, I would highly advise to do it in a iterative way, right? And
Yeah.
so don't build the whole thing. Use the lean methodology and the agile project management development style to be able to iterate your product, right? So build in stages, and the reason why you need to understand the product roadmap, which will change as you launch your MVP out and then into the market. You might have 20 other things that you had on your roadmap, but realize that these two new things need to be built first, right? And that's the beauty of building an agile, is that yes, you have a product roadmap, but you're constantly adjusting it based on what's needed in the market, what your customer feedback is. You're refining your product for retention, right? We talked about all of these things already. And that's why it's so important to stay involved, especially in the early days of your product. You should be the product manager for your product, because you are the person who is closest to your customers. And the CTO, well, we already talked about CTOs, right? Like the CTO, you probably don't actually need a CTO in the early days. You need someone technical to work alongside of you, because the CTO, in the true sense of it, is the visionary, is the person who's managing the teams, right? And you don't have a large team. You can have someone who's a senior person who's responsible for the development part, and you can manage the product and manage the project. And so it's just really important. Like, I can't stress it enough, especially in the early days of your product, for the person, for the entrepreneur to be the product person, because they are the closest one to the customer. They really understand what the customer's needs are, and they can communicate that to the developers.
Yeah, even if you can build a business model canvas before even going to, developing your product, or even putting one module of it, you should actually develop a BMC before that. That's very, very important. And I completely agree with Nelly,
Thank you so very much for answering my question. And you mentioned a webinar tomorrow. I missed that. If you can just let me know the details on that. I mean, I followed you on Instagram, Nelly. Anyway, so if you're
Yeah.
posting it
So
there,
the link is in my bio on Instagram,
okay.
or also in my bio on Clubhouse. But if you want a clickable link, just go to Instagram and click on the link in my bio. It'll take you to the webinars page where you can register for it.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks
You're
a lot.
welcome.
Thank you so much,
So
Nelly.
Nelly, I have actually a closing question, if that's okay with you.
Very
Less than a
quick,
minute.
because I have to jump off.
Yeah. So of course, I'm not looking for a CTO as such, but definitely I'm looking for somebody at a non-executive director position, or maybe an advisory role. Is that something works with you by any chance? So I'm building a blockchain product for NFT, as well as we are creating an accelerator for blockchain and AI in India right now. And we'll be starting an exchange program with 500 other countries, that is UK, US, Singapore, Israel, and Dubai. We have started the first cohort already. Just because of lockdown, we are not doing offline right now, but we are starting virtually very soon.
Pravash, I think I missed your question. What was your question?
I said I'm not looking for a CTO, but I'm looking for non-executive director or maybe advisory role. Is that something you are open for? Because I just read your bio and you have just mentioned that you are actually open for CTO and also startup tech advisor. So
Yeah,
we have
so
passed that startup stage actually.
right. So I serve as an advisor to a few startups. That's a long-term process. If you're interested in starting that conversation, feel free to reach out to me, and then we can take it offline.
Awesome, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
You're
Nelly,
welcome.
I just wanted to say, Nelly, that it's been great just hearing you and the intent and the seriousness with which you conduct this room. I've actually written to you on LinkedIn. Hope you find it, and I love to have a cadence with you offline. Maybe just get to know each other better and see if I can, any value we can add to each other. I've really enjoyed being on this group. I've usually been moderating venture capital pitching groups, and it's been so delightful being on an operator group where you're being able to really add value to people here. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you, Vital. Absolutely, just reach out to me, and we'll try to set something up. All
Sure
right.
thing.
Thank you guys for joining and for the amazing questions. I'll see you, some of you, tomorrow or Thursday, and then I'll also be hosting the same room on Thursday, so feel free to join as well, especially if you haven't had a chance to ask a question. Thank you again, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great evening, night, or afternoon, wherever you happen to be in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nelly.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Greg. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Nelly. Thank you, Greg.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nelly.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Greg. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Nelly. Thank you, Greg.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.